What is up? Welcome to this week's episode of the Vanflip podcast. Today we're joined with winter death metal, Finnish metal band WOLFHEART. Tuomas, guitarist, vocalist from the band, has joined us on the pod. Welcome to the show, man. How you doing today?
I am doing good. I've been insanely busy, but I'm super happy that you told me just 2 minutes ago that this is going to be more like a little bit not that official. So I am actually looking forward for the next 55 minutes more than I was 10 minutes ago.
Good. Yeah, nothing's really official when it comes to me doing the podcast by any means. So I kind of explained that beforehand. I'm not a trained interviewer, so to speak, or anything like that. And admittedly, I don't do a whole lot of pre-work on the episodes because we do one every week, and I also have to post all the news to the website, handle the website on a day-to-day basis. So it's not necessarily like I get a lot of free time just to go ahead and deep dive for, really intricate questions. So I just kind of like roll it off the tongue, so to speak,
One thing, good to me. It's like usually what it means, like even though if the reporters do very thorough check, it's still basically all about the band or our albums or our tours. So I that's already like being like routine of the past 3 weeks. So,
well, that's because you guys have a new album coming out next month, or next month when this podcast comes out, September 6th. Draconian Darkness. You guys have released a couple singles. I really did like, just to get the music stuff out of the way right ahead, right now. I did like the first, I don't know if it was the first single, second single, Even Fall. I really liked the video that you guys made for that, and the song also is amazing too. So I just wanted to give you like a little credit for that right now.
Thank you. That's a good way to start an interview. Make me happy, and then you can you don't destroy my mood so easily in the forthcoming questions. But yeah, it was actually the second single. But I do enjoy this kind of videos a lot when I can see the band more in their like natural habitat. Like I do like the big sceneries or pyros and like the basic show things in the video. But I do like to see bands like really a little bit more like in real atmosphere, like a studio or stage or something that shows the band more like who they are, not just the show that you can build around the band.
Yeah. And you guys, a common theme that I keep reading with you guys are in your press articles and stuff like that, or it's winter metal. What would like winter metal be? Is that just another name for like Finnish metal or something like that because you guys spend a lot of time in the cold in general and there's a lot of snow around, or is it just like a specific type of genre?
It is, and it was invented by me 2013 because the first album where we released was basically a solo album. It was a solo project then. I released the album fully on my own. I didn't have a distributor. I didn't have any like label. Promo company, did everything on my own. And I knew that I have to label the band somehow. And at that point, I was doing this melodic death metal thing for like 12, 13 years. I didn't want another band to be just one of the bands playing just melodic death metal. So winter metal sounded cool. And it does have a connection with the direction of the production. I want the music to sound like winter nights. But then again, you need to be familiar of the Nordic, like winter nights, to understand what I'm aiming with that. But crushing cold and beautiful, that's how it should sound. That's the image that I have musically of the band. So it does fit. It's not just a cool name, but it is a cool name.
Yeah.
And I like that it still comes up because then I did a good job 11 years ago, because it stick well.
Yeah,
people call us winter metal, and I don't need to remind them. I don't need to bring it up anymore. It kind of like it comes with the band. I so far I didn't see any other band using that either. So I kind of like.
I will admit that I think the term is the first time I heard it. The first time I heard the term was with you guys, with the release of the new album coming out and the singles coming and everything like that. That was the first time that I'd really heard that term used, and it kind of made me think like, well, what exactly does that even mean? But that's a good explanation. And I just kind of thought it was something to kind of be, reminiscent of the Nordic atmosphere, so to speak, in the winter and stuff like that. Because again, you guys live in an area that it's cold most of the year, I would assume.
But also, I wanted to have like some kind of like a label that has some Nordic connection, but
Yeah.
Finland doesn't have any Viking inheritance. We have no Viking culture in our history at all. So I wouldn't want to give any hints for the listeners that we would have any like. That's why we don't have any runes or this kind of like a Viking symbolism in our cover art or merchandise or anything. We are very like careful about that because that doesn't belong to Finland. That was Norway, partly Sweden, Denmark, nothing in Finland. Actually, Vikings were scared of Finnish like a coast. They didn't come here much because there were stories that there's witches in the forest in Finland. So they avoided Finland. So they didn't even come here to raid the villages, basically. So we don't have our ancestors didn't even get killed by Vikings. That's how far we are from this.
Wow. I would have never known that.
Yeah. But then again, like Finland is a super young country when Norway already had the Viking culture really strong, and they were like discovering new worlds, and they were kings and queens in Sweden. There was huge empire in Russia. It was basically just farmer villages in Finland. It's weird middle part, like just like a thin slice of land between like Nordic and Russian empires. That's just where our ruling was also passed. We were either Swedish ruling or Russian ruling. It was, yeah.
Interesting.
So, but we do have winter. We did have winter from the beginning of time. So I can bring that up with the name. So there's a lot of regions because that's the only thing I can actually carry on with me from like Finnish part of the Nordic stuff. So that's
we also don't want to use those kinds of things and then it not have any kind of connection with your band and end up being like posers or something like that. A good word to say.
There has to be a story. If you come up with something that hasn't been used before, you need to have some kind of background. Of course, Finland is known for the Winter War. 1939-40 with the Russia. We have White Death. He was the most lethal sniper. So this kind of wintry theme is what Finland is mainly known, like when it comes to like historical events also.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of reasons. There's no, when you think it the other way around, there's no reason not to call our music winter metal.
Exactly. Yeah. And if you tie it all together, I mean, the layman would have to know those kinds of things, but that's why we're talking about it now, so they can be introduced to those topics and things. The cool thing is what you mentioned earlier is that there were like stories of witches there, and that's why the Vikings wouldn't come. That's kind of very interesting because they're very strong. They're supposed to be big, strong men, and very ruthless, would just come through and pillage everything. And they used a similar tactic with Iceland and Greenland, or there was a similar tactic used for that where Greenland was all ice and Iceland was all, green, and they would avoid Iceland for that reason. So it's kind of interesting that you guys had some kind of story or lore to protect you guys in that time frame, which is, interesting.
But also Vikings were smart when they were raiding places and they were expanding and doing whatever they did, because we didn't have, at that time when Vikings were like ruling, we didn't have big harbor cities. There was nothing that valuable to take in that sense. Like Christianity came to Finland after the Viking era was ending, because the Christianity took over Norway, and then if I remember correctly, the Christian faith of the church in Sweden wanted to collect more tax money, so Finland made a lot of sense to bring some religion suddenly. So it's like and then we started to have like a more like bigger cities and harbors and stuff. So, but that time there was not much things to raid either. So
it's a plus. It's a negative, but also a plus.
It's a plus now. I don't think it was like a good thing back in the days, but yeah.
So with the spread of Christianity and stuff like that, does that tie into, the Nordic death metal scene and stuff like that? Because the melodic death metal scene up there is just, it's very, like you were saying earlier, a lot of it is like mythology from back in the day, whether it's Vikings or something like that. But how does the Christianity coming into that area of the world, does that tie into any kind of like death metal that you know of personally or that you've heard of before?
Not in Finland. It has a lot bigger role with the Norwegian black metal scene, and they are famous about the church burnings and stuff like that. So, because there the Christianity actually like replaced an actual culture and history. So that kind of like there is some like a justified hatred in a way. I'm not say that you need to hate Satan or Jesus or nobody should hate anybody in the ideal world, but like there's like it comes from a real background, the kind of like uprising against Christianity in the music scene. But not in Finnish mythology was so scattered. So it's like a really fucked up puzzle. We didn't have our mythology documented. It's not like a Norwegian one that you have very clear hierarchy with the gods and demigods and stuff like that. And so only thing that Christianity in Finland did was that it kind of like it was forbidden, this whole pagan stuff. But also Christianity brought the ability to write, but it wasn't allowed to write about the pagan stuff and the mythology stuff. So a lot of the stuff never actually got documented. So it's like a really difficult to dig into that kind of stuff. But otherwise, no, Christianity doesn't. It did brought certain amount of civilization. Like we had the ability to write and stuff like that. So it kind of like it helped Finland to develop, but I don't think there's like a musically any connection.
Okay. Yeah, it's one of the things, like growing up in school, you don't really learn a lot about Finland from where I'm from, in the States. So my knowledge of Finland is whatever I've looked up over the internet on the last 20 years. And I can tell you it's not a whole lot.
But I do fully understand that, because our biggest role in the geopolitically basically is the Second World War, when we have a certain role of being able to stop the attack from Russian side. Also got fucked up with the Germans burning Lapland, stuff like that. But it's like in a bigger picture in the war history, that's also more like it's just kind of like cool details. And that's pretty much it. We don't have a role in the European history in that sense. That like I'm not like I don't mean that we are not important country and important people. I did dig into the Finnish history and mythology and everything quite a lot, because the past two albums were theme albums about both the war history and mythology. I'm painfully aware that there's not much. That there's not much for me even to tell you. So, like it's a lot of the Finnish things worth of talking has been happening in the past decades. So historically, there's not much. We are a young country. Like our independence is 120 years old or so. I should remember that correctly.
And you guys,
like
go ahead. Sorry,
insanely young country anyway.
Right.
So.
And you guys earned your independence from what, the Swiss or Russia at the time, or what was going on? Russia?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, that's a little corner of the world I know very little about, but also I'm not taught necessarily that in the regular schooling. I guess I could take a college course on European studies in that area of the world. But even then, if I took a European studies class, I'm probably learning about, the core Europe countries or whatever. So it is what it is. But you mentioned earlier that WOLFHEART started as a solo project, and I know you're in a different band, or you're in another band currently, Before the Dawn.
Yeah.
And is that so that became WOLFHEART became a side project for you on that for that band, correct?
It replaced all of my bands at that moment. I had like 3 active bands until 2013, when I buried all of them, and then I started WOLFHEART. That was like a thing that I was planning for a few years. So it might have looked sudden for the fans, but it was like long-term plan to do that. And then I had this very firm decision that all the bands are going to stay buried, and this is only going to be WOLFHEART now. Until 2 years ago, most of the bands actually came back.
Yeah.
It's kind of like things happen. So now I have 3 bands active again, and like not smart at all. It's fun, but it's not smart because this week I've been doing studio work with the 3rd band of that list called Dawn of Solace, recording the new album, and then all the afternoons and evenings I do interviews for WOLFHEART. So it's not smart, but fun.
Yeah, it's got to be hectic to do that, to juggle all that stuff, especially when you weren't doing that for almost a decade, and then now all of a sudden you're just dumping more stuff on you. Does that have to do with like, and again, this may not have anything to do with it, but the timing kind of circulates around the pandemic. Did that, like the downtime in the pandemic, maybe push you to bring those back because you just had a lot of time at that particular time, and now you obviously don't because everything's back to somewhat normal?
Yeah, well, it did have a role. It like I've been talking with a lot of bands. Naturally, like only thing that you could talk to another band was how fucked up things were. Yeah. Like during the COVID time, there was no good topics. You were only checking up how is anybody else getting more fucked up than you. Like that was very depressing time because nobody was doing better. Like usually you get some inspiration or energy when somebody does better than you. But like everybody was struggling, so it was just different bands telling the other bands how badly they were struggling. So that was really horrible time to write music also. Like it wasn't the time that you were super excited to go and do new music because you knew that you didn't know that if there's going to be labels left, are you going to be able to tour with any of your bands? Touring is quite a big part of the album release anyway. So it's like making music with only question marks in the air is in a good place to be on a studio. Usually when you go to studio, you roughly know the next year touring plan. You have everything set up for that, maybe even 18 months ahead. But when the only thing you know that you don't know anything about, if anything will come back ever, that's so I didn't write much music during the pandemic, but that had to play a role. Because I want to claim that particular thing more than myself.
Yeah,
I want to say that it was the COVID, not me being adult and unable to control my creativity and impulses and schedules. I'm 44. I should be able to do that, but that's why I'm playing COVID.
Yeah. Was it you that kind of started the ball rolling, or did someone else approach you, that like a former bandmate, kind of say like, hey, let's do this thing again after a decade of, almost a decade of not being in a band together?
Well, it was like funny coincidence because we did some on and off festivals. Like I think we did 3 festivals in 5 years in Finland, just like one in each summer, just to like, the money was good. I'm not gonna lie, and it was fun to do because it wasn't serious anymore. So. But and the gigs went well, and there was like clearly more demand for more shows and everything. But we never talked about a comeback. We even made like a vinyl version of one of our biggest albums that came out in 2006. We did one new song, and it went to #1 in Finnish album chart. Still, nobody mentioned any possibility of doing a comeback or doing like an actual album until. I think it was like now 3 years ago when my guitar player called me like, yeah, turn on the TV. Somebody is in national TV doing one of our songs. And I opened the TV. It was Voice of Finland. And there was this guy I never saw before doing one of our biggest hits in national TV. He actually went to the finals, came to second in Voice of Finland. And that kind of like started the domino effect. And he became the new singer of the band. And that's...
Oh, wow. So it's kind of like a Journey thing, kind of like a Journey. I don't know if you're familiar with the American band Journey, but they had like a Filipino guy doing karaoke, and then all of a sudden he replaced, Steve Perry. So he's the current singer of the band.
It pretty much the same. And it's been quite entertaining and refreshing in many ways because with WOLFHEART, it's been basically a lot of work past 11 years. I do a lot of the managemental side also. And well, we do have a management, but I do everything involved with the band, with the social media. I do the video productions. There's a lot of like, and every year it's feels like it's just what is the best word, so I don't offend anybody in the in the labels or management. But it's like the hill might get a little bit easier, but the stone is equally heavy to push on top of the hill. And more like obstacles with the US visas now jumping 200% higher, European touring costs being double that they used to be, and tickets selling a little bit less than they used to be because of COVID and the Ukraine, Russia thing. Like this always, every year has a new surprise obstacle. With WOLFHEART, it's just basically using your face as a hammer to get through that new boulder that is on your way. With Before the Dawn, suddenly 10 years, nothing happens. Suddenly everything happens, and it happens on its own. We have a singer, poof, we have an album. Suddenly we have a full festival season in Finland. Suddenly we do a European tour. And no struggle, no obstacles, nothing. Things has happened, so that hasn't happened to me that much. So it's been like this nice musical holiday beside the actual music business work that involves WOLFHEART. So,
speaking of the new album that you've been working on, Draconian Darkness, it's on Rising Phoenix, and if I could recall, your previous album that came out 2 years ago was on Napalm. What was the deciding factor or the reasoning between like swapping labels out?
The contract ended with Napalm, so we were anyway free to negotiate with anybody. And we wanted to test the waters just to see which labels would be interested. Like, there's no exact reason to leave Napalm. It would have been really dumb not to ask around and see what's the situation is. And the Rainy Phoenix situation is very unique because I think in past 15 years, there's only been one new kind of bigger label coming into the market, and that was Atomic Fire.
Yeah,
I don't know, did they even have like an office in US, but it became quite strong and big in Europe. And now Rainy Phoenix is the second one doing the same thing. But they actually, what I heard, they got like a bought Atomic Fire. At least they got most of their biggest bands, and they signed Kerry King as a first signing, then Halloween, then they have like the Meshuggah, Obeth, Amorphis, all of those bands from Atomic Fire. So they are the biggest thing happening in music industry in 20 to 15 years. So that tells something. That tells that there has to be ninja level professionals. They has to have a really good funding. They must have a really good marketing plan and everything set up, because guys like Kerry King, they don't take risks and they don't just try out a new label. They know things, and they are able to negotiate and ask around in a way that it's like we want it to be on the same wave.
Oh, cool. Interesting.
Like in music business history in the past 30 years, this is a really big event, having this size of a label coming this fast with this big roster of bands. So
right. No, it's a big undertaking for sure, and to have that roster is quite enormous. I actually saw Kerry last night. He played here last night, and we had him on, not the podcast, but we did an interview with him on Monday. So it's been a Kerry King week for me, and you just brought him up again, so it's 3 days in a row now I'm dealing with it. But it's all good. Like you said, he doesn't take risk, and he's also one of the founding members of Slayer, so you can't really be bummed that you're having to deal with it, you know?
Did Kerry mention anything about the label?
No, he didn't. He did not, unfortunately. I didn't do the interview. I was sitting in the interview, and I had one of our writers do the interview. The writer is a guitar player, so it was a little guitar focused, but also with the giving Kerry his love, and he had like 20 minutes to do all this. So it was like give you your flowers and talk about guitars.
But clearly, he didn't give any shit about the label either.
No. Yeah, no. And there's a rhyme and a reason to everything. So I would assume he definitely is smart about his ordeals.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that he's one of the guys that and because he can choose anybody.
Yeah,
with his band, he can just walk into any label, So I'm sure that he's the one picking up the winning horse from any race. So
yeah, true. So when you started out, were you always like a multi-instrumentist guy, or did you learn one of the things first and then you were like, I needed to learn drums or guitar or bass or whatever it else is? Because in the long span that you've been doing music, you've clearly adapted yourself to do not only the music part, but like you said, the video editing and the management and all that other stuff. So like, what led you down the rabbit hole of like being an all-encompassing person for a music group or a band or anything like that?
Well, when I started to learn guitar when I was 8 years old, the first thing I wanted to do is to learn how to do something on my own. Like I thought it was super boring to learn songs of other bands in the guitar lessons. And I think when we were done with 2 months of the lessons, we were supposed to play a part of the song to the teacher that we learned. Mm-hmm. But I thought it's super boring. Why would I learn somebody else's song? So I kind of like made my own song, which was basically the 4 chords. I knew that at that point, not definitely not a song, definitely not anything good. Right. But I thought like I was super clever because I put these certain minors and majors in a row. But I was super lucky that the guitar teacher realized that like this is probably gonna be his thing more than being like a technical guitar player. So the rest of the year on the guitar lessons, I just went there, did my own thing, and he came to check up me that I had the proper technique and stuff like that. But I didn't learn anything from him. I didn't. One C minor scale was the only thing I learned. Like actually thing. I didn't learn any musical theory. I didn't learn anything else guitar playing wise, except he was just looking after me that I don't do stupid mistakes with the hand placement or wrist position or having my finger position wrongly in the chords. And then I just continued like writing music, and I thought drums are fun. So I learned drums, and it became really like a good composing tool also. And then piano sounded cool, so I wanted to learn that. That's how it works. Not to be technically a good piano player, but how could I use piano for music writing? So the first demo I ever did was 98 or 99. And that I did alone. I played all the instruments myself. And I thought it was amazing to be able to go in studio and just build the song layer by layer. Yeah. And I just continued that for the 30 years where I'm basically now. And it like the way I started like finding new bands. I was living in a very small village, 5,000 people living in the village, super close to Russian border, quite like a little bit isolated from any like bigger cities nearby. So there was like one friend of mine had like MTV, and he was recording Headbangers balls, and I got those tapes. And that's how I've learned metal bands. I saw music videos. I didn't hear the albums. I didn't get to read the metal magazines. I saw music videos. That was my first touch for every band that I grew up loving when I was growing up. So I always had this like I was always fascinated about the music video, like the visual side of the music. So once I was able to start learning to do the music videos, I just like I didn't think that I would be doing those for my own band and that would be a thing. But it's just, again, I thought it probably is going to be fun, and it's still fun. So not a good profession, doesn't pay well.
No, yeah. This whole rigmarole with metal and everything doesn't pay well for the most part, unless you're in the top, 0.5% crust of the great bands that go on to do that.
But it is a super fun thing to do still, like because I do enjoy greatly to be in the studio, building the album, before the studio, writing the album. But when the album is done, then we pick the single songs, and then I can dive into the video production. Then I get like this an additional layer that I can get into after the album is done. I'm just not waiting for the promo to begin and do some interviews and then touring and stuff like that. And we can do a lot of cool stuff with the budget given because I can always cut my salary low because again, I'm not known for making smart decisions. I make a lot of decisions. If things seem fun, it's worth of doing. So, like for this album, we went to Iceland for almost a week. We did the footage for 3 music videos during that trip. We had a cabin on the side of a mountain. We had a hot tub. The water was heated by the lava field that was underneath the ground. There was like 2 volcanoes active at that time. It's like being able to do these kind of things. And you get to do that traveling with one of your best friends because they are your band members.
Yeah.
So it's like that's the best holiday I could think for myself. And I did get paid. I'm not saying that I like it.
Right. Just not as much as you probably would have liked to in the beginning, but it's a give and take.
It doesn't give much saving for the old days, but it is like these are really cool things still for me to do. So,
no, yeah, kudos to you for doing that, obviously, and that I'm with you on that mindset to where like it may not pay off in the long run, but it's the experience and the doing it currently right now that I'm going to savor for the long run in general. So why not just go ahead and do that?
Because I know a lot of bands that when talking about music videos, they are like really bummed that they have a music video shoot coming because it's usually one of the most boring days for them. Basically, you're just waiting for Get to do something, and you play the same song like 20 times over, and you just hope it to be done. But I'm just counting days for any of the music video trips to happen. And I've been working as a gardener and landscaper for 27 years, so I do have a plan B. I've been full-time musician now for several years, but I don't see myself making a living for the rest of my life. Naturally, that this is not the field where the money grows, so to speak.
Right.
So like I can just have fun with it now, and then I know that I have a job waiting if that's to be needed.
Right. You mentioned that you guys had a cabin in Iceland. Is that the cabin that is featured in the video in your recent video?
No, sadly, no. That's one of the best studios in Finland at the moment.
Okay, so is it spliced in with footage from Iceland, and you just kind of like?
Huh?
Is that video spliced in with footage, the outdoor footage from Iceland, or is that also Finland?
For this album, we are releasing 6 music videos.
Okay, so
3 of them is shot in Iceland, and then some of them are a little bit like I didn't want them after 2 videos, already the third one because I wanted to break the pattern a little bit, have a little bit different sceneries.
Gotcha. You mentioned about finding bands and finding metal through Headbangers Ball. Was that your first introduction to metal, or did you already kind of know what metal was prior? Because I obviously asked because Scandinavia is kind of famous for a lot of genres of metal and everything. And in our heads, like when I think of kids growing up in that part of the world, they just grow up learning scales and doing all kinds of crazy solos and death metal stuff. So was that your first like intro to that style of music? Was Headbangers Ball?
No, it wasn't the first. The first one is, I'd be like, I've been in kind of like right place at the right time or wrong place at the wrong time. Depends how you look my past life, where I wanted to be maybe, but it's super small village. There was like, 5,000 people is not much. That clearly cuts a lot of options down. But the only death metal band of the whole village, the neighbor was the singer.
Okay. Lucky
you. And his guitar player came to the same guitar lessons, and that's the first time I saw like a guy with the long hair and Explorer guitar and playing death metal. That was one of the first things I saw when I walked into the place where they had the lessons. And when their death metal band made a demo, I got that demo from the neighbor. I was like 11 or something like that. I didn't know what growling vocals are. I didn't know that kind of thing exists until I got the tape. And I immediately fell in love with the sound and everything. I still listen to that band's first album occasionally. I do play it like always if I have like DJ thing in Finnish metal radio or something. I usually play one of those songs.
So you
And
go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
it's like so again, I happen to be weirdly in the right place at the right time. But there's a fun fact, like if you ever do like any interview that is connected with Nightwish, their manager was the drummer.
Oh, interesting. For that
So
demo.
I'm pretty sure that because of that band, and probably he was involved with managing that band and trying to get it out from Finland, which was huge challenge and obstacle back in the days. No internet, no connections. But yeah, he became later on the manager of Nightwish. He still is.
Awesome. Yeah, it's crazy where people end up or their trajectory in life in general is. You said it was difficult to get out of Finland back in the day, obviously with the lack of internet. But like, for you personally as a musician, like, because I don't know if you were doing your own booking or your own promo or your own management stuff back in the day as well, because you currently are doing some of that now. But what is the differences between now and then? Obviously, with the introduction of the internet, making it way easier for you to connect with people.
Well, the communication doesn't take weeks. Like trying to connect with somebody that you didn't already know is you basically wrote a letter, and then you were hoping that it actually arrives and he reads and replies. And if that goes outside Finland, that's 2 weeks of waiting just to know that it didn't even like end up in the right place. And yeah, it's hugely different. Cannot compare. Like, because it's most of the media is now also online.
Right.
Like I can reach like medias that I never been in contact before. I can reach in Facebook in like half an hour. So many of the guys or pages or whatever. Back in the days, like how do you even find them? There wasn't like
that was my next question.
that many metal magazines even that were coming to Finland that I would be aware what medias there are. Like it's completely different world nowadays. Like I remember when I did my first album with Before the Dawn 2001 or 2, the Spanish label actually sent a check to the studio. The money didn't even got wired, and the master wasn't even on a CD. Like, and now everything just flies through emails and wiring and stuff like that. So
yeah, it's interesting. Was it difficult? Like, and again, forgive my just incompetence and lack of knowledge of how Finland works and whatnot, especially 40 years ago. But is it difficult for like the import export situation of like you were just saying, like magazines? How does media kind of enter the country or exit the country back in like 30 years ago? Like, was there like a wall that certain things couldn't pass through and only certain things that, like, I don't know, maybe a government or someone official allows to come into the country? Or is what, you know what I mean? Is it different now?
well, it was never like about that. Like that sounds more like Russia that you just described.
Well, you're close, so I had to ask. You know,
I thought like, but it's like it wasn't that. But again, Finnish population 5 million. If you look at like the early 80s, what were the markets for like metal magazine from UK or metal magazine from Germany? Like it didn't make any sense to import those. There was nobody reading those. Like, and we didn't have metal labels, of course. We didn't have much metal bands that were actually making albums. So that all of that grew later on. And but yeah, it was super easy, but there was just no market for that at that point.
so that like music was able to come and go freely. Just there was no reason to import it in general.
Yeah, everything was still so small and growing. Like,
Gotcha.
I guess I would need to talk. I should talk with my neighbor about that because he was like 6 years older than I was, and he was his walls were filled with the metal band posters and stuff like that. So it was available if you knew where to look.
Gotcha.
But it's not like you had like a magazine stands that had all the metal magazines from Europe, and you were just pick up your favorite and go home and read it. So, but what you mentioned about the government stuff, Finnish government has actually been insanely supportive towards metal music.
Yeah, a lot of Scandinavian places are, it seems. A lot of those countries seem to be very like they uplift that community or uplift those artists too a lot.
Yeah, like nowadays you can apply funds from the government for touring or album making or video making. and it's been always super positive from the cultural side of the government. Finnish, like we have this cultural part, like I don't know the name in English, but they used to host like this annual metal thing in Tokyo that bands could get half of the expenses out automatically, basically. And it was just basically for Finnish bands to be able to expand to Asian markets. And that was just done by Finnish government. They just thought that this probably is a good thing to do. So, and they, of course, they've seen the value of Nightwish or Children Bodom or Amorphis,
right,
how big they grew and how well they represent Finland. So it's a smart cultural like exchange anyway to put a little bit more input on the metal scene.
Yeah, it's a smart move, obviously, because when, like I said, when I think about that part of the world, melodic death metal and black metal, that's what comes to mind when I think about those three countries, Norway, Sweden, and Finland. That's all I can really think about. Speaking of sharing a border so close to Russia and touring in Europe and everything like that, you mentioned it earlier, the Ukraine-Russia conflict. How does that affect like shows and touring and routing and stuff like that? Obviously, probably not going to as many parts of the Ukraine as you probably are used to. But like, how is that ongoing conflict affecting like just bands in general in that area of the world?
Now a little bit less. It had quite a big impact on the whole European scene because when the conflict started, the natural gas supplies were basically from Russia. And for example, Germany had a huge need for that, not just heating of the houses, but the industry also. So nobody knew what's going to happen on the first winter in Europe either. If our is heating going to go away from millions of people? Is the factories going to be shut down? So that had an insanely big impact on the ticket sales and stuff like that. Everybody was not in a panic mode, but just playing super safe. Nobody knew what's going to happen next week. Nobody knew if the war is going to spread further than Ukraine. And is the Europe going to be part of war or just Ukraine and Russia? And of course, none of the bands are touring Russia at the moment, or I don't think in a long time. We did several tours in Russia, so that's kind of it was always a fun place to go on tour, but not going to happen. Ukraine is out of the question completely, and it doesn't affect at this moment. It doesn't affect really on the regular touring in Central Europe.
Gotcha.
I'm pretty sure that the gasoline and diesel prices are a lot higher than they were supposed to be because of the whole conflict. It does have quite a big impact on the economy of the whole Europe, and that usually hurts the entertainers the first.
Yeah, because
if people have a stress about their income or money or the future, they rather buy food than a concert ticket.
Right.
When everything goes more expensive, like gasoline and stuff like that, when you do 20,000 kilometers in 1 month and everything is 30% higher, that's naturally going to be an issue. Right. So it doesn't help, but it doesn't affect that clearly that it would affect the routing or anything like that on the tour.
Speaking of cost of goods and or ticket prices and all that other stuff, I don't know if you guys are experiencing the same thing over there in Europe, but it would seem like here in America, ticket prices are higher than they've ever been for one thing, but also inflation and all this other stuff is going on here as well. But attendance for shows and stuff like that is kind of, we kind of hit our peak a while ago, and now it's kind of coming back down to reality where some tours are getting canceled or cut short or not as long because attendance is kind of drawing, smaller numbers. And many people think that's because obviously everyone was locked up for COVID for so long. And then when they got out, they just kind of went wild and started attending everything as much as they could. But are you guys seeing something similar over there in Europe?
In Europe, it's been more slowly, steadily recovering back to normal. I think what with it did same happen in Europe, but I did see same happening in North America when it comes to European bands. Way too many bands went on tour at the same time. It wasn't just the audience being waiting to be on a show, but a lot of the bands were sitting on new albums because they were waiting the touring to come back, or they were just really like they had a serious reasons to go back on road. Like if the touring is the main income of the band, and you don't tour for a year, then you don't care if you do 40% less income. You need to do some income. You need to get the money back to the company of the band to be able to pay the salaries. So a lot of the bands went on road. They knew that it's probably not the smartest thing. We're probably going to take to make some damage financially, but it's a lot better than not doing the tour. So there was no normal planning. The touring didn't follow the album releasing cycle anymore. Everybody just wanted to be on the road, especially big bands. And I'm pretty sure the same happened in North America. At least what I saw, the amount of European bands suddenly coming, because we were trying to like get there and like seeing how less options there were at the same time, how many tours there were happening. So that will hurt also, because then it's just too much happening at the same time. People don't go to 4 concerts in a week.
Yeah, true.
So, and I think that might have like also like started to wear people out. Like you wanted to see the tours, you wanted to support your favorite bands, but when it was too much, when you were doing like 3 shows a week, then that's when you do that for a few months, and then you realize that like I could do a lot less, and then you start cutting down the shows you want to see, and so it was like a damaging wave of tours that didn't like have any like good outcome.
Yeah, I think we're coming back to reality, so to speak, hopefully, and things just kind of level out. Ticket prices and attendance, I think, will level out, hopefully. Well, I got you for like 3 more minutes, and I'll cut you loose because I know you got another situation scheduled after this. But I don't mean any disrespect, but I would like to know.
I like how it started already. So.
I'd like to know because you're a very tattooed person. I also am tattooed all over. I just want to know what the significance of the brow tattoo is, if that's what that is.
I thought there's going to be a lot more complicated question coming up.
No.
I was so prepared, but there's a story. I just don't tell the story to anybody.
Gotcha. And you don't have to. It's a tattoo. I understand. Yeah. I completely understand.
It's very simple, very like personal, but very tribal at the same time. So there's not like that strong of a hit. I'm amazed that nobody actually realized it on their own. At least people who know me, but it's I do get the question a lot, and I don't mind answering it at all.
Cool. All right. Well, you don't have to go fully in depth on it. I won't pry it from you. And thank you again, Tuomas, for coming on the show. It's been great talking to you. This goes by quick when it's just easy conversation, and I appreciate that. And I hope you had a break from your normal Q&A kind of situation.
This was very refreshing. 55 minutes. Yes.
Thank you.
I'm full of energy to do another half an hour, probably the basics back on the table, but now I have all the mental capacity to get it done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, hopefully they talk about geopolitics and Finnish history and all sorts of other shit. But if you're still listening, Draconian Darkness comes out September 6th. WOLFHEART. Thank you very much, Tuomas, and have a great rest of your day, man.
Thank you.